Welcome back, you filthy last Epoch players. That was really hard to not say exiles, but anyway, let's get into the video. Okay, so I thought I'd do a video on what I'm playing. I went a little bit of a different route, didn't initially know what I was going to do, and the build just sort of came together. Didn't follow a guide, whatever. So basically, we're playing a Void Knight. In this case, we're running Erasing Strike. And we're running Void Cleave, we're running Lunge because it's cool. Rebukes is in here because it doesn't even need to be in here, to be honest with you. It's just because it is. And we're running Vengeance as our main on-hit skill. Now, there's a synergy that I identified between Void Cleave, Erasing Strike, and Vengeance, which is really cool. And so basically, let's talk about that very briefly. So we'll go through all the skills and everything similar to a PoE build guide. I've got a bit of an idea of how I'm going to roll this, but anyway. Okay, so the big damage dealer at the end of the day is Void Cleave, and well, actually Erasing Strike. Now, the way that this works is that essentially Void Cleave has a really interesting interaction with Erasing Strike. So there's this node here called Obliterator. Number one, cool name, really enjoy it. But yeah, there's more to that. So what this means is if Void Cleave hits at least one enemy, your next Erasing Strike is always a critical strike. So that's 100% critical strike chance for Erasing Strike. Now, Erasing Strike is an enormous damage dealer, right? You can basically almost one-clap enemies if you're scaled up enough. And so basically, we then abuse this mechanic between these two items. And then to double up on that, you also get from Vengeance, you get Essence of Revenge, and you get Essence of Vindication. And basically this means that you generate Void Essence, and then Void Essence gives you increased Void damage, increased Void melee damage, and stun duration, and you can have 3 Essences at once, so it like super juices. And the other advantage of running Vengeance is it's a highly defensive stat. So for example, Bolster means you take less damage and you get 50% increased armor. And then basically you also do Repose, or I think it's Repose, which essentially is like reflective damage or whatnot. Anyway, so as you're hitting enemies, you're just wailing away like this. You're generating additional defensive stats. So I don't know if it pulls up on here. Your armor goes up, you get more defensive, you're able to do more, I want to say chaos damage, but I know it's called void damage. Then basically you pop your void cleave, hit the enemy. That's really cool, we'll talk about that soon. And then you hit your Q and you absolutely crush the enemy. Now you would have noticed that I have an echo charge in here too, and this is actually coming from the tree. And so I have echo chance or echoing strikes, which means as I hit, this really cool echo effect hits, which means I can double hit, and that means I get even more damage. And there's another synergy here, which is using the idols here. You have increased void damage for 4 seconds when a skill echoes. Because I always do that, my void damage is going up through the wazoo all the time. So basically, this is really strong. Now, the other side of this is I played this as a two-hand build because Void Cleave only works with two-handed axes or swords. So we're going axes with this bad boy because I can't play melee in Path of Exile, but god damn it, I'm gonna play melee in Last Epoch. Anyway, let's get into the gearing and let's talk through this screen here. Okay, so gearing wise, helm. So there's a few things to bear in mind with some of the gear here I've learnt as I've been sort of gearing this up. Number one, there's some really cool interactions with things like on my helm, for example, increased echo damage when a skill echoes. And that means basically that echo, that little like ghost image, mirror image sort of effect gets 109% increased damage. And then beyond that, basically this build is really predicated on stacking. So we have overcapped on almost everything. But I stack a ton of armor on this build, and predominantly it comes from my chest piece. Now, I don't really have any uniques that are notable. You can get Siphon of Anguish from farming Shades of Ouroboros. Basically, you just need to put one down. He's going to drop. This as a guaranteed drop. As you can see, I've done 3 of these. It's just they drop at various different, I guess, qualities. And in this case, this is also a really good ring because it applies Doom on hit. And then you get Void Penetration with Doom as well, which means you do even more damage. This is like BIS right now in this build as far as rings go. Now, helm-wise, I looked at implicits. I've got a lot of armor on my helm and Void Resistance. I've also got Crit Strike Avoidance, which you need in this build. Some Vitality, and if you can get a helm with Echo damage when a skill echoes, that's going to increase your damage further. Amulet, I lucked out and I got an increased healing effectiveness amulet, but this is a pretty janky amulet. It's really just dealing with lightning res, fire res, but the void penetration is nice in it as well. My axe is absolutely ridiculous, so at least at this stage of the game. So you're looking for a high level of melee physical damage and crit multiplier. Now the reason why that's important is because if you get crit strike chance, doesn't really matter whether or not you get crit strike chance, because when you hit Void Cleave, you're going to get a 100% chance to hit a Racing Strike at 100% crit. So basically, multiplier is what you want in this scenario. If you can get something with big multi, then you're going to do well. And also flat void damage scales really well on this, I found. I'm just looking for a better axe at this stage. So this isn't my best axe that I can get, by no means. We're going to cover that in update number 2 or 3. But for now, this axe is pretty damn good. Now, armor-wise, high armor base. Now, I did use the Last Bear's armor initially, which is like a pretty janky piece of chest piece, but it's really good early on until about level 70, level 75. And then it drops off once you go into an 85 zone and get into like the 90 zones now. So I have like a ridiculously high armor base. And if you can get an implicit that gives you mana regeneration as well, that's going to give you a big advantage because this build does struggle with mana regen at the end of the day. So high armor chest. Now rings, crit strike chance if you can get it, resistances, crit strike avoidance if you can get it, and critical strike chance implicits are ideal. And as I said, Siphon of Anguish mainly because the leech. The leech is really important. Because it's melee, you need to sort of stay into the fight a little bit more. You can't sort of stand back. You need the leech to be able to take a bit of damage on the front face. Now, the other thing with melee, before I get into this too far, is you also need to really learn fights because the hitboxes on enemies are really janky, especially the dragon in the level 85 monolith. That's a horrible fight for this build because basically you can't move around the dragon properly, and there's definitely some patching that needs to happen there, but they'll get to it eventually, hopefully. Now in my belt, literally just void damage, endurance threshold. I got like really lucky with an 18% life roll and mana regeneration. If you can get all of this, even better. And if you can get a good implicit, then that's going to do well on the belt. Now I do have the Last Bear's Fury gloves. They just give you a good amount of health regeneration per point of strength. Also flat melee damage, and that's about it. Like, you can get way better gloves than this, but these gloves are doing me justice right now. Boots wise, movement speed is really important on this build, especially when you're versing like the Necrotic Dragon from the level 85 zone. You need to be able to move fast enough to get in and out of different things or areas, or like radii for AoE attacks that can insta-kill you, i.e. the necrotic bloody radius on that dragon. Anyway, so armor, movement speed, resistances, any other stat that you can get. Ideally, if you can also get vitality and or health regeneration on your boots, go for that too. And now your relic that you run, crit strike chance, void damage, endurance if you can get it, and health regeneration, basically all the best ones. I got really lucky here because I got cold res and lightning res as well. But yeah, just anything that buffs up your resistances and your damage at the end of the day is going to be preferable. This build scales really well with crit strike chance and flat void damage. Attack speed's not really necessary because we're just doing like a 1-2 hit situation. We don't really need a lot of attack speed for this. And what you'll actually end up doing when you're fighting enemies that are much more difficult and you can't sit in the fray for as long, you're actually going to come in, you're going to hit them with a void cleave, and then smack them with a racing strike, and then run away. It's a bit of a coward's game when you're playing this type of melee build, but trust me, it works. It's really effective. Now, idol-wise, I've got idols that have increased void damage for 4 seconds when skills echo. Right now I have 2 of those, and also had flat increased echo damage when a skill echoes as well. Which is sort of useful. I haven't fully optimized this yet, so I'm still working through this. I got increased health regeneration and healing effectiveness throughout all, and where I could just like elemental resistances and void damage on whatever I could fit on. That's it for gearing. Right now it's pretty scuffed, but it's getting through the game, and there's nothing like really crazy here. By the way, I have not went with the Merchants Guild. I've went with the Circle of Fortune because I thought it'd be more fun to play this SSF. So I've done this SSF at this stage, which is a little bit harder. But anyway, that's basically it for gearing. So let's talk about the skill setups. Okay, so for now I'm using predominantly 4 skills. I was leveling with Rive originally, and you can level with Rive if you want. I'll put the build planner in the description below. I was about to say POB. We don't have POB for last Epoch. Anyway, so basically for a racing strike, you're pretty much going to level up to what I initially did was I did put points in Ruthless. Now, Racing Strike, as soon as you get that, is going to be incredibly damaging. Like, you're going to just, like, smash shit. So I went straight to, like, Dust to Win, 1 point into Implements of Destruction. You don't really need a lot of that because, you know, whatever. And then basically I got Obliteration, and then this just gave me flat melee void damage. I got Prophet's Onslaught. I moved into Certain Erasure. I moved into Hastened Cataclysm and Essence of the End. And then I also have Absorb the Remains as well for a bit of life regeneration or life restore here, especially when you're hitting bosses. And then a few points down into Merciful, and I have some Mark of the End, which is some Void Shred as well, which rips through enemies' resistances. Basically, that's about it. I'm going to optimize this a little bit more as I go, but this is working really well for me right now, and I'll tweak this as I level up a little more. Now, as far as my lunge, I learnt this when I was playing around with my Forge Guard, like a few days ago. So basically with lunge, you want to level up into Warrior's Renewal, Ambuscade, and Double Strike, and Lead the Charge. The reason being is you get like multiple charges, and then you can basically just like move around really quickly with this, and then slam stuff with your Erasing Strike. And then basically I go for like Dawn Charge, Blade Stream, Broadside, Slipstream, To Your Aid, and Healing Rush. And this basically gets me running around the map really quickly, and just going and hitting everything. Now, for Vengeance, so I switched to Vengeance later down the track, like at level 65 or so. I'd recommend switching to Vengeance pretty soon. You're going to level up through the campaign using Rive, because it just feels better when you're leveling up early, but Vengeance is where it's at. So basically, first thing I did, move up into Double Ripazay, Rapid Strike, so you get that attack speed buff, and then you want to move into Essence of Revenge and Essence of Vindication. This is going to get Void Essence charges on kill, and also Void Essence charges on Ripazay hit. And then you're going to get Bolster. This is going to give you damage reduction, quite significantly so. Only put 1 point in Executioner initially, and then get Bolster, and then I just put a point in Feint Strike. Like, seriously, you could just put it into Executioner. It's not really going to make a difference at the end of the day, because you're going to use this as like a sort of utility skill. It's not really used as like an actual skill. You're just going to like hit stuff. It's not going to do a lot of damage, but it's going to be satisfying, and you're going to stay alive because you get the damage reduction buffs from Bolster, which is really good. And then the last skill we have is Void Cleave. Basically, you want to move down to Obliterator as soon as you can. So basically, just 1 point in each of these, or the minimum points required. So 2, 1, 1, 3, down to Obliterator. And then I moved down to Crushing Echoes, and then I got Abolisher at the very end, because then it does increase damage to enemies with less than 50% HP. And of course, Dark Pathway gets you 30% cooldown recovery speed too, so really useful to have to keep you in the fight for, I guess, longer, quicker. Anyway, so that's the setup for that, but this is all in the build planner that'll be in the description below. Okay, so finally, passive tree. So you're going to start a Sentinel, obviously. We're only putting 22 points into there for now. So you start off with Juggernaut early on when you're leveling up. The reason being is you get that early fire resistance and void resistance, which is really useful. And then I went to Fearless for vitality and health regeneration, then Armorclad, and then I picked up 1 point for Time and Faith, but realistically you don't need this, but it does make it a little easier to sustain early mana and like mid-game mana when you start to get to like level 50 and 60. Then we went into Void Knight, and I went straight into Abyssal Endurance. This gives you pretty much max Void Resist by the end, or a good chunk, more HP. Then also Temporal Corruption, which I put 2 points into that, and 3 points into World Eater for Leech. And then also Void Blades, 1 point in a Patient Doom. I may put more points into that, but I'm not sure yet. I don't think I will though. And then Void Corruption as well, which gives you more crit multi based on the points spent in the Void Knight Mastery. And then we come down, we should have enough points to reach finality. So I've got 1 point in finality for now, and then I've put points into woe as well, because this gives you increased armor on melee kill. Then into singular purpose, this gives you like 100% flat void damage, and we need flat void damage to throttle living daylights out of a racing strike. And by that time I was having issues with mana, so I put a couple of points into Future Mind just to buff up my mana regeneration. And then Echoing Strikes is a priority, moving into Time Legion, moving into Avatar of Regret, and then Dread. Because Dread gives you movement speed, it's going to make you a lot faster on the map, so you can just blast enemies. And you're going to need that by about level 70 to 75. And then I've also got a couple of points in Eternal Form, and I maxed out Void Aegis as well, which means basically you are granted a chance whenever you are hit to have Void Aegis, which gives you 10% damage reduction, which is really useful. So yeah, I have that maxed out at 25% chance for when I get hit, so 1 in every 4 hits, I generate that. For now, this is basically the tree. I'm going to adjust this as I continue to level up and empower my monoliths, which I'm not far off doing that at this stage. But I haven't played a lot over the last 2 days that it's been out, just because of being quite flat out. But anyway, that's it for the passive setup. Okay, so I just wanted to keep this video brief, not a crazy video or anything like that. But yeah, that's first like build update for what I'm playing for my Erasing Strike, Void Cleave, Vengeance, Void Knight. But yeah, if you like this format of video, if you want to see me do more of Last Epoch content, let me know in the comments below. Drop a like, drop a sub, and check me out on Twitch as well. Anyway, until next time, have a good one, and I'll talk to you guys later.